Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you the chassis kit that my buddy Travis and I designed, built, tested, redesigned, retested, and are now competing with in competitions. This is the Penguin chassis kit, designed with a sleek, flowing set of chassis rails. It's offered in two different materials, titanium grade 5 or stainless steel 304 series. Our kit provides instant performance gains for your next scx24 base comp build. So let's grab one of these kits and show you guys what they're all about. All right, let's open up one of our kits to show you guys everything that it comes with. So inside the packaging, you'll get two baggies, one that's got some parts in it, one that's got some hardware in it. And then in the bottom, you'll have your chassis rails. So starting off with your baggie of parts here, I'm gonna go ahead and dump everything out and we can talk about it as we open it. Set the hardware aside. So you're going to get a left hand and a right hand rock slider. So these things are made of 3D printed material. They give you the option to be able to mount any of your electronics or battery. A lot of versatility when it comes to the sliders. They also are very functional. You will get a 3D printed skid plate. It is a standard stock scx24 transmission skid plate. You will get a stainless steel front body mount. Now this is really meant for magnet mounts. You could put a post in here if you wanted to do a stud with like a bolt or something else similar to it. You could do that. I've seen some people that have done it. We typically just do the magnets up front, and it seems to work pretty well for us. Although recently on one of my bodies, I've been having trouble keeping the magnets holding as well. But this is the front stainless steel mount. You will get what we call the tall rear body mount. It is also made out of stainless steel. The reason we call it the tall mount is because if, for example, if you're running a cliffhanger body and you didn't want to have a stud or a physical body post mount, you could do magnets and it actually sits up inside here. Now, keep in mind, our chassis kits will accommodate a variety of different bodies, keeping in mind that different body variations may have to be trimmed to actually fit your setup. For example, we have run the Bronco hard body. We've also run the Jeep JLU Wrangler body on our chassis kit, and it does fit very well. The best way to be able to mount them is the tall rear body mount with magnets. So that's what you're seeing here. This is our demo truck to show what the mounts look like. So here's what the front stainless steel mount looks like with some magnets, and basically I just put that on. I'm also using the rear body post mount just to show that we can use both. Here's one of our customers running our Penguin chassis kit using the Coyote body. Here's another customer that's running the Chevy C10 body with a really cool paint setup. Also something that's noteworthy is the VW Trail Beetle body. That also fits on our chassis kits as well. So that's the tall rear body mount for magnets. You will also get a 3D printed body post mount for the rear. Inside of the rear body post mount, it will already come with the screw, the washer, the lock nut that you will use for your body post. So if you're, for example, wanting to run a cliffhanger body, this is a perfect setup for you already. If you have a different body style, the screw may not be tall enough, so you might have to get a longer screw. And then it will also come with a 3D printed rear body post nut with a brass insert. So what that looks like when it's all said and done, installed on the truck, that's what it looks like. And then when I put the body back on, I'll thread the body nut on. and voila, that's what it looks like. So real simple, makes it look really clean, gives you a good option to mount your body there. Like I said, you will also get hardware, fastening hardware to be able to put this entire kit together. And then last but not least, the star of the show is your chassis rails. So this set that we're showing today is the titanium set. I chose to do a titanium set because I wanted to try and burn them so that way they had a cool rainbow looking effect to them. And although it didn't turn out as good as I probably would have wanted it to, it still gives it a different look, a different appearance. So keep in mind that if you do run the titanium, you can do this as an option, or you can just keep them polished like the other set that we offer in stainless steel. So this kit is set up for C10 wheelbase or C-bolt wheelbase, which for those of you that aren't familiar with these, that means that the chassis kit is going to fit most of the Axial, scx24, Jeep JLUs, Broncos, C10s, Deadbolt, Betty, Basecamp, and the new Lexus GX470. It's also going to fit the Gladiator or the Power Wagon wheelbase, but keep in mind that the rear body mount might need to be customized to work with those length bodies. So if you're planning around 127 millimeter up to 132 millimeter wheelbase, you're going to be good to go. So with our setup here, you're seeing C10 wheelbase. I'm just a big fan of the C10. I will also occasionally run C-bolt. I have put Gladiator links under here, and it does work perfectly just fine. It just depends on whatever body style that you would like to run. Okay, so now that you guys have seen everything that it comes with in the packaging, let's go ahead and start assembling one of these kits together. So inside your mounting hardware kit, you will have a variety of screw lengths. Keep in mind that they do kind of matter where they go based on length. So for my setup, I'm going to put the transmission to where the motor screw on top is going to face the rear, or is going to be more towards the rear portion. So you can take two of your shorter screws, I'm going to go ahead and screw them into the center two screws here. Now you don't have to run these if you don't want. If you're new to the scx24 scene, you're going to probably ask why. I like to run them just because if I were to not put these screws in and I needed to take my slider off and I weren't running these, I would end up taking the screws out that hold the frame rails to the actual transmission skid. So I like to run them. They are actually cleared for in the sliders. That's what these two holes here are for. So if you do want to run the center two screws, feel free to. If you don't, and that's not your thing, then that's okay too. So once I got the one side, I'm gonna grab two more of the short screws. Also, if you're unaware, the frame rails that have the arrow or the triangle in them, that is pointing towards the front of your rig. So keep that in mind when you're setting everything up. We don't technically have a instruction manual or an assembly drawing to show how all this stuff goes together, so that's why we're putting this video together for you guys today. So now that I have the frame rails attached to my transmission skid, I'm going to go ahead and put on my sliders. So you're going to use two more of your shorter screws. And again, remember, these sliders are directional. They will match the frame. So if you put them on the incorrect side, you'll see what I mean by that. So you can see, like right there, the frame line doesn't match the slider. So if I grab the other one and I put it up to it, you can see the frame line matches the slider perfectly. So that's how you know if you put the incorrect one in. So for the sliders, they take a little bit longer screw, so don't use the shortest screw that you have available, but also don't use the really long ones. All right, we got one slider installed. Grab 2 more screws. Get that one started. All right, and just like that, we have our frame kit assembled. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with the rear body post mount. You can grab your short screw. Now this is where it gets a little challenging and tricky on hole placement. So something to keep in mind when you're placing this rear body post mount, the 3D printed one, there's going to be a really flat portion versus the other side is nice and rounded and curved. The really flat portion is going to be facing the rear of your rig. So when you go to put this in here, make sure that you don't put it in 180 degrees in the wrong direction because it is possible to do that. So when you're orienting the rear body post mount, the way that I like to look at how this gets positioned, because realistically you can move this body mount in a few different positions with the mounting holes in the rear, but the way that we've designed it specifically for the cliffhanger body, for this body post mount, you're going to see that there's one hole here, and then there's going to be a set of 4 holes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The next hole, this one right there, that is going to be your rear screw. So if you start there, that'll be a good point. Now be sure on these 3D printed parts that you're not over tightening these screws, because you can strip out plastic, as I'm sure all of you are aware. So I'm going to take the screw on the other side and do the same thing. So the 2 sets of screw holes there. Screw that one in. Now from there, the way I like to look at the front post, the front screw for the rear body post, is there's a triangle of 3 screw holes here. Off of the forwardmost screw on the triangle, you're going to follow the next hole down, and that will be your front screw. And we'll do the same for the other side. And that will be our rear body post mount. Pretty simple. So for those of you that are wanting to run the rear tall mount, the hole positioning in the mount is pretty universal, very much like the front mount and this rear body post mount. And there are a variety of holes that you can shift this thing up and down based on your body needs. But to start, I'm going to go ahead and place mine in the upper 2 holes. That's kind of where we've designed ours to start off from. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one, place it through. I'm going to take another one, place it through. We'll do 2 on the other side. There are 8 supplied nuts, so you can take one of the nuts and place it on each of these screws. What I find useful is using a pair of really small cutters to hold these nuts in place. All right, now after we get all the nuts placed, we have our rear body mount. Now, keep in mind, you can run both of these simultaneously depending on your body. For example, on our demo truck, we do run both just to show, because this is a demo truck, to show people at our local comps that you can use both. So as you can see, we've got the post mount and we've got the magnet mount. So depending on your body, you can run both setups, but it's not necessary. If you are only running the post mount, you don't have to run the tall magnet mount, or vice versa. One is not needed if you want to run the other direction. All right, so our front mount, very much like the rear mount, has multiple positions that you can place it depending on your servo placement, depending on your body, and where this magnet needs to end up, based on like the Cliffhanger or the Wrangler or the Bronco. It may need to shift in a different position, or it may need to go up or down. So there are a variety of different mounting holes here for this that will accommodate that. For my example here, I'm going to run the last set of screws that we have here. We got 4 screws left. So the way I like to look at this is in the very front, you've got the first mounting hole, the triangle, and then there's 2 holes here. The bottom hole of the next series, we're going to go above it, and that's our first screw. So I'm going to take my mount, place it about right there, put my screw through just like that. I'm going to place my other one, and then we'll do the same on the other side. And just like anything else in the RC world, you may find that this is your starting point, and you may end up needing to shift these mounts around to different locations. What I'm going to do is, because this screw is not wanting to let go, I'm going to go ahead and take my first nut on this side here, and I'm going to go ahead and place it on this screw and tighten this down. And then we'll do the same on this side, since you guys probably saw the screws coming out. There it goes. They can be kind of a bear to get in. These nuts are so little. Onto our last screw here. And just like that, this is the Penguin chassis kit fully assembled. So this is everything you're going to get. Like I said, you have a bunch of different options for shock mounting placement. You have a bunch of different body mounting locations. You have different body mount options. The sliders are optional, but they do give you the versatility to be able to mount your electronics or your batteries, or just having a functional slider that will help you pivot around different obstacles and rocks, and keep you from hanging up. There's a conversation to be had about whether they help in that aspect, or if sometimes they hurt you, because they do stick out and they hang up. They can hang up on certain things, but I've found more times than not that the sliders are beneficial to me. They help me more than they hurt me. So this is what you're going to get, and this is what it looks like fully assembled. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build this truck out. I have my original version of the Penguin chassis. I'm going to take all the components that you see here that make up my original kit that I've been running for the past several months now, and I'm going to take it all apart and put together this one and see how it does. Biggest difference that you're going to see here in this kit versus my original is I'm running titanium on this versus these were stainless steel. And this was an original edition, so we've made a few tweaks to this edition as far as shock mounting placement and the body mounts and whatnot versus how this one was. This setup didn't have the option to be able to move the body around or the body mounts around to different locations. and you just didn't have as many shock mounting positions that were actually as usable. So that's why we upgraded to this set, and this is the Penguin chassis kit from CompCrawlers. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to after I go ahead and get this assembled, and we'll show you guys back here on the bench what the new kit looks like fully assembled, and hopefully it looks just like this with a little bit of rainbow color to it. All right, well, there you have it. This is what the Penguin chassis kit looks like when it's fully assembled. Got my axles all in here, my motor, transmission, all the electronics, servo. Got the front mount going, the rear mount, doing the body post. In the front, like I mentioned earlier, I've been having some trouble with magnets sticking to the underside of my body. I've tried cleaning up the body to have a little bit more grit to it without taking too much of the paint off, and I had so much trouble getting a decent magnet on here. I had some smaller magnets that they would stick, but they're not very strong magnets, so I went to the next size up that I had, and it's like they're extremely strong. So they were so strong that they would pull the 3M tape off of the body or off of the mount. So I'm going to ditch that for now. I'll come back to it at a later date because I'm sure I'm going to want to try and figure out magnets up front. But for now, I'm using this extra strong 3M Velcro, and it seems to work pretty good. I don't know if it's a long-term solution or not, but that's what I'm going to go with for now. I think eventually what we may consider doing, look for something in the future on this. I may make another post mount like we did in the rear. I might make one for the front and then just run a post up front, because in all reality, this is a competition vehicle for me, so I'm not necessarily going for aesthetic looks. So that means if I needed to pop a hole in the front of the body to make sure that this thing is super secure, because in competitions, we winch all over these things. That's why the windows are cut out. I've got some holes here in the body cut out, just to be able to get a point where I can grab a hold of it with a winch. Up front, there's really not a lot to grab a hold of, but if I do need it, I don't want to have to worry about this body popping off. So, and it has happened in a competition before, and it really hurt me. But regardless, this is the end result of what the Penguin chassis looks like. I'll put it up on the screen now, show you guys kind of what that kind of looks like spinning around. I will have to do a little bit more testing and tuning with this kit and this setup that I have particularly. What I mean by that is my shock setup and my link setup. Like I said, I'm running C10 front and rear, and I'm running the, I think they're 39 millimeter Proline big bore shocks with 20 weight oil in them in the rear. So I don't have a lot of flex because I just don't have a lot of travel with those. But in competition, for me, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of flex. I like it to be really settle, and I like to just see my rig kind of go over these obstacles and glide through versus having to flex and articulate over everything. So it's just a driving preference. Up front, I did something very similar. I'm running the hard parks. I believe they're a 42. I could be wrong. I'll put that on the screen now, what the actual shock length is for these hard park shocks. But what I like about these shocks, and the reason I chose them, is I was previously running a set of hot racing short dampening or internal spring dampening shocks. And what was happening is, to be able to get the full articulation of this axle, and these are stock axles, we're not even talking about like the Mias axles, isokinetic axles, or even Super 8s. These are just stock axles, and I was still getting into the shocks with my tires because I like a really positive offset wheel, so I'm running these hard parks. I am very, very similar to a stock tire and wheel combo on the stock axle, even though I'm running a larger tire because I'm in class 3. So in doing so, that brings my tires in really close to the chassis, which in turn meant that I was hitting the tire on the shock, and it would grab and it would bind. These hard parks, what's nice about them, if you're not familiar, is the outer body actually rotates. So as I'm driving, and if I get the tire into it, it actually will rotate the shock, that outer portion, and that it doesn't hurt me. It just rotates. So you see, as I'm sitting here doing this, it never binds. So no matter what position I'm in, I will always get movement. So that's pretty much our setup here. There's really not too much else to talk about it. I'm running the Lizard Pro ESC, not the one with the casing, but the just the bare bones ESC. And then underneath of it, what the ESC is mounted on top of is I made a 3D printed mount for my receiver. I'm running the Radiolink transmitter and receiver, so I've got their little micro receiver underneath there because there was really no good place to be able to tie it down, so I made my own little mount, and it's screwed to the slider here. So I'm running the Fury Tech Micro Komodo with their transmission and motor mount. Reefs RC, the Micro 99 brass front servo with the Little Guy Racing Parts brass limit strap. We got the Flow 3x9 steering tie rod that has the roller bearings in it, which is really nice. And like I said, I've got a aluminum front axle with a Trio brass diff cover. We're running 33% overdrive up front. And then in the back, I'm running a stock plastic housing with a Trio brass diff cover in the rear. And then I designed and created a 3D printed, and had my buddy Travis 3D print a skid for the rear diff. That way you don't get hung up on the front of the housing or on the yoke or on the pinion of the drive shaft. Even though our kits do come with the 3D printed transmission skid plate, I'm running the Endura brass skid plate, and the reason for that is I wanted extra weight, centrally located, down low. I want a low LCG, so that's why I decided to jump and go to this versus our stock one that we 3D print and sell. I got a little bit of a smorgasbord of drive shafts. In the rear, I'm running Trio. In the front, I'm running Endura steel drive shafts. In the rear, I also have an aluminum rear upper link mount that gives me multiple adjustment points, so I can change my ride height, or change that rake, so I can fine tune it a bit in the rear. Otherwise, that's pretty much my setup here. I run these little 400 milliamp batteries on this setup. Now, something I might do in the future, this is me personally, for those of you that have run any sort of like Endura LCG chassis kit, a lot of them and other companies come with these little chassis stiffening ribs. I put one in here just to kind of brace things up a little bit while I was initially setting stuff up, and I decided to leave it. In the future, I might actually make a mount down inside between the chassis rails, so that way I could run a different battery setup, a higher milliamp battery. That way I can get longer run times, because there's times where I get myself in a pickle and I drive around a lot, so that way I don't have to take reverses. And I ended up ultimately having to swap out batteries mid-run because my battery can't last long enough with these little ones. So it is nice that these things don't weigh a lot, and I do have it off to one side. So, you know, there's really not a lot of options with me running the motor facing forward for me to put a battery up front. So I'm kind of limited to the rear right now. Now, if I were to swap things around with the motor facing the rear, then I would have room to mount a battery up front. And that is something I may consider doing in the future, just to see how it goes, just to kind of change the weight up a little bit. But so I'll put on the screen now what my weight numbers were before I swapped to the titanium set versus the stainless set. And now I'll put it up on the screen what I'm running now for weight with this titanium kit. Now this is without a battery and is with the body and the body post nut. And that was the same measurement from the stainless to the titanium. Difference being, I will say, is that in the stainless, I also had both mounts in here, whereas on the titanium setup, I'm not running the rear tall mount, as you can see. So that would be a little bit of weight difference as well. But as you can see, my weight bias is definitely more to the front, which is what I was after. And I dropped a significant amount of weight on this on these chassis rails. So I don't know if that's something that I'm going to like or if I'm going to dislike until I start driving it a little bit more and getting a little more comfortable with it. But we have a big competition tomorrow, so we'll see how things go with that. A little risky swapping all this stuff over tonight the night before. But regardless, it's just one single competition. It's not a series, so no harm, no foul. If I don't do well, that's what it's all about. Can learn and get a little bit better. There you have it, guys. This is the Penguin chassis kit from myself and Travis over at CompCrawlers. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to answer them. And if you're interested in getting one of these kits for yourself, reach out to us on Instagram at CompCrawlers, or you can message me here on YouTube, or if you find us on Facebook, feel free to reach out there as well. If you're ever at Reaction RC in Grand Rapids, we're there all the time as well. So feel free to stop by and say hi and ask any questions that you have. And if you're interested in putting in an order for one of these kits, we can get you set up. As of today, December 7th, these kits, the titanium kits, are running $75 for the kit, and the stainless steel sets are running $60 for the kit. And that was everything that you saw previously, not obviously fully done, fully outfitted, but just the chassis rails and everything that you saw that came with the kit earlier in the video. At this current time, as of December 7th, we are taking pre-orders for right now. We have actually 2 of our original kits that are left for sale. When I say the original set, this kit that you're seeing here that I put together, this truck, this is our version 2. This is what we are selling now, what our new standard is. We have the original version, this one here. This is the original truck that I've been running that, like I said before, has a lot less shock mounting holes and the body mounts aren't as adjustable. But nonetheless, it is still a very good setup, and we will have 2 of these available for sale still. So if you are interested, we do have 2 available right now in the version 1, but version 2, we're taking pre-orders, and as soon as we hit a number that we're looking for, we will place that order and get more kits available on hand. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And thanks for watching.